Charles Arthur Salvador, formerly Charles Ali Ahmed, born Michael Gordon Peterson on the 6th of December 1952, better known as Charles Bronson, is a British criminal who has been referred to in the British press as the most violent prisoner in Britain and Britain's most notorious prisoner. He has spent periods detained in the Rampton, Broadmoor and Ashworth high-security psychiatric hospitals. Ronald KRAY, the 24th of October 1933 to the 17th of March 1995, and Reginald KRAY, the 24th of October 1933 to the 1st of October 2000, were identical twin brothers, gangsters, and murderers. They were the foremost perpetrators of organised crime in the East End of London, England, from the late 1950s to 1967. With their gang, known as the Firm. Marvin Herbert is a former gangster who has been investigated over 24 murders and 8 shootings. Herbert shoplifted for the first time when he was only 8 years old, and went on to rack up 21 convictions for 76 offences. Marvin Herbert is an ex-gangster who once worked with some of Europe's most dangerous figures. But after being shot and losing an eye, Herbert decided to leave the criminal life behind him. Vic Dark is one of the biggest names in criminal history. There are few in the country that can match his criminal record. During an adrenaline-fueled career as an armed robber, his willingness to take incredible risks, combined with a soldier-like ability to formulate watertight strategies and to execute them with chilling coolness, ensured a string of astonishingly successful robberies. Yet his luck couldn't last forever, and Vic was eventually caught on the job, and sentenced to 24 years in jail. Brian Cockerill was once a violent gangland enforcer who was linked with and fought some of the hardest men in England. Known as the Teesside Taxman, Cockerill operated in the criminal underworld for almost 30 years. Brian Cockerill was once described as the 5th hardest man on the planet. This was because he spent years working as a violent gangland taxman, who had countless street fights in a career that lasted almost 30 years. CARLTON LEACH is an author, occasional actor, and a former criminal. Leach was born in Canning Town. A fan of West Ham United FC, he became involved in the Inter-City Firm, a gang of hooligans who followed the East London club. Leach started work as a bouncer in East London, where he became involved with Tony Tucker, then Pat Tate, both of whom worked as large-scale dealers in ecstasy during the rave era in the late 1980s. Tate, Tucker, and Craig Rolfe were shot dead in December 1995 in a Range Rover on a farm track in Rectendon, in the Rectendon murders. Paul Sykes, the 23rd of May 1946 to the 7th of March 2007, was a British heavyweight boxer, weightlifter, writer, prisoner, and debt collector. He spent much of his adult life in prison, where he became one of the UK's most notorious inmates. As a boxer he had success as an amateur in 1973, and in a brief professional career in 1979 fought John L. Gardner for the British and Commonwealth heavyweight titles. Sykes's adult life was peppered with alcohol abuse, petty robberies, mental health issues, violent crime and prison. Sykes died on the 7th of March 2007 at Pinderfields Hospital, Wakefield. Kevin Lane, 53-year-old, sentenced to life for 1994 murder of Robert McGill, but hopes to shed more light on his case. Kevin Lane, serving a life sentence for a controversial hitman murder committed nearly 30 years ago, has taken the unusual step of publishing a book from inside prison with fresh evidence he hopes will lead to his conviction being overturned. Lane, now 53, was convicted after 2 trials on a majority verdict of murdering McGill, who had been out walking his dog in Rickmansworth. Tony Argent was a violent man who was recognized by older criminals when he was at a very young age. He was used to terrorize and intimidate rivals. He started engaging in criminal activity aged 10 when he was trying to mug people for money so he could get food. Aged 14, he took it to another level with gangs and started burglarizing laundrettes and clubhouses. His worst crime was murdering Paul Edmonds outside a pub in Plaistow. He was convicted of murder at the Old Bailey in July 1999 and was sentenced to a life sentence, with a minimum of at least 20 years. King of Karachi CHET SANDHU from Newcastle is an author, artist, and actor, but admits on his Instagram bio to be an ex-gangster and an ex-drug smuggler. CHET SANDHU went from smuggling in drugs to afford a pleasurable lifestyle to turning his life around and leaving the criminal underworld. The 14th of September 2017, CHET SANDHU was busted with $500,000 worth of black market steroids in Alicante Airport in 1999. CHET SANDHU is a former international drug smuggler, author, renowned podcast guest and founder of Alpha CBD+. In November 1999 he was arrested at gunpoint in Alicante Airport. Middlesbrough gangster Lee Duffy was one of the most feared men in the Northeast. His life was taken by a man he called his friend. Away from his criminal life, he was a boxer. Lee Duffy was of the most popular and most fearless UK gangsters in history. Lee Duffy was one of the most feared men in the Northeast. His life was taken by a man he called his friend. Away from his criminal life, he was a boxer, who had various books and films made about him. The most recent was a film called Lee Duffy, Too Far Too Soon, which was released in 2020. He was mainly involved in the world of drugs. His criminal dealings made many people chase after his life, but Duffy was too strong for them and he survived 3 attempts before his death. People attempted to kill Lee Duffy by shooting a gun at him twice. They then also attempted to turn him into a human torch. In August 1991, Duffy's time was up as he was killed by the man who he counted as his friend, David Allison. A fight with Allison broke out on Martin Road in Middlesbrough after they spoke at a blue party in the Afro-Caribbean Centre. The duo took the fight out to the car park in front of a huge crowd. Duffy first smashed Allison's head against the ground, but then someone passed Allison a knife and he stabbed Duffy in his left side. He was rushed to Middlesbrough's General Hospital, but at 3:55 a.m. on August 25, he died aged 26. Allison handed himself in and was charged with the murder of Lee Duffy. He told the jury that he was self-defending against Duffy, who would regularly carry a gun around him. During the trial, some of Duffy's violent past was also revealed, such as Russian roulette games with loaded firearms. Allison was found not guilty of murder and manslaughter and he acted in self-defense. Many were not happy with the final verdict and streets were filled with people for Duffy's funeral on September 1991.